Welcome to Practice Talk, a deep dive into the world of healthcare practices, where we invite team members to share strategies to make your work life easier. Now your host, Lacie Ellis.
Welcome to Practice Talk, brought to you by People in Practice, where we specialize in digital marketing, website development, SEO, and so much more. Today, we're doing something a little different, and we're looking back at some of our favorite conversations in 2025 and getting answers to some of the questions that we get asked the most as growth consultants and marketers in the dental and orthodontic space. So a question that I think is important and does not get explored enough is a question about community events. Let's listen into the advice from my friend and marketing queen, Mary Katherine.
How do you define a successful community event?
Yes, absolutely. All the marketing terms, looking at that, your return in the orthodontic world, how many starts did we get from a said event, which are all necessary evils and great to track and look at. But also, if you see someone that says that maybe a new patient comes in the door and you ask what is their referral source, how did you hear about us? And they might say, oh, I saw your billboard, but I also you guys brought your photo booth to my child's school 3 years ago. We're building on that. They might not come in the Monday after a weekend event, but we're putting our brand in front of them. And eventually, we always say that our blood runs lime green here at Scenic City Orthodontics, but we want to make their blood run lime green without them realizing it. So I would definitely say that if there is a large showing, it's successful. If you've put your best people out there, it's going to be successful.
I love that. So because I know at some practices I've worked in, it's really defined by how many leads did we collect, or, how many patients scheduled, how many started because of that event. And I love what you said. It's about building that brand awareness and really just being in the community. That is the goal of the event. I mean, yes, we love it when we get a patient from it, but if that's the only way we're defining the success of the event, I think you really are limiting yourself and the practice in getting out there and doing it. You feel almost defeated because, oh, we got one lead from the event, but that's not true. And like you said, the way that we qualify when somebody comes in and we say, oh, so how'd you hear about us? They're usually going to tell us like what they think we want to hear, it seems, the dentist referred me, because that feels like such a strong referral. But really, it's a combination, we feel, of so many things. They've seen us at an event. They did ask their dentist and he said, yeah, they're great too. And then they go online and read our reviews and do their homework online as well. So I just think there's not one path that somebody takes usually to get to us. And so defining the success of an event really shouldn't be tied, in my opinion, to how many people started because of it. So
absolutely. I try not to track, if we're going to do an event the next year, tracking exactly how many new patients we did receive from that, but looking at it as a whole, like there was a great turnout. We collected this many emails or this many phone numbers. There's just not one way, obviously, in marketing to do something. And so we don't like to put all of our eggs in one basket just based off of if we actually had a patient come in our office and start treatment with us on that one event.
The next topic is one that came up a lot in 2020 when we were all pivoting with the pandemic. However, I think it is still extremely valuable technology to use, and it is underutilized. Let's listen in to how Jamie Kent and her team at Somerville Orthodontics are using virtual exams.
I'm especially excited to talk to you, Jamie, because your office works and utilizes with our virtual exam platform and the dashboard that we have in place. And I wanted to have a really honest conversation with you about how you utilize the technology and how it really works for you guys. So to start really high level, I'd love for you to share an overview of the workflow that you use for virtual exams.
Okay, so If someone sends in their information, they're going to be sending in their date of birth, their name, and why they're reaching out to us. And we have a couple of different options that they can choose. We have metal braces, clear braces, or Invisalign. And when someone puts in their information, we'll have that all in front of us. And my first thing to do is going to be reach out and introduce myself and tell them that I'm going to be helping them out throughout this whole process. And on there, when they send in for a virtual consultation, they also send in photos of their teeth. And there's going to be 5 different photos. And Dr. Lee will take a look at those, and he basically sends me a treatment plan towards that. So that's usually the first step of him looking into it. There is also an option where someone can send in their insurance card information, where at that point, I'll send that to my front desk coordinator, and she kind of looks into that for me. So once we get to that part, then we're able to kind of go over what kind of treatment plan that they'll be needing and everything like that that goes along with that.
Awesome. Okay, so I think there's this myth out there that you really can't get to know someone through a text or email. And I think there's an entire world of online dating that proves that that is not true. So I think we can build genuine trust and connection through the virtual exam. And so I love that your office really takes it to like the highest level that you can of a virtual exam, and where you go through, here's what your options are for treatment, with the caveat that this will all be confirmed with an x-ray at your first visit, right? Because we can't see what's under those gums through these photos. But you go through the treatment plan, you walk them through that journey, make sure that they're really comfortable with all of that first. So like what the treatment recommendations are, answer all the treatment type questions first, I would assume. And then really get into, okay, let's look into the financial options, your insurance options, what the fee for this treatment is, how long you're going to be in treatment, and then really work from there on getting them to yes, like getting them really comfortable with that treatment plan and with the finances.
Something we get asked every fall is the question of how to build a relationship within your school system. And I love the advice that Heather Ham shared with us.
So the last question I have, and the thing I probably get asked the most, is how can we build strong relationships with our local schools and homeschooling communities?
Yeah, that can be a challenge, but what I have figured out is to target those schools closest to your practice. Reach out to them, see what support you can offer them. We do many events with our local schools from elementary, middle to high school. We'll sponsor their spring carnivals. Middle school, we're sponsoring 8th grade t-shirts because they're going to be moving up to high school. So we're sponsoring 800 8th grade t-shirts this year. With another elementary school that we're doing they're called car rider tags, and they hang on the rear view mirror. So at pickup line, the staff at the school will see the number. I'm not sure if you know how the car rider lines work, but they'll call out on their walkie-talkie, like student 245's parent is here. So the staff is seeing that, but on the backside of the tag is basically an ad for Loopy Orthodontics, which has been great. We have gotten a couple leads from that. So that's always exciting. So just reaching out to those schools and seeing what ways. It's not always advertising with them, but just being supportive. Another example is an elementary school was going on a field trip to the pumpkin patch, and there was a miscommunication and the bus never showed up. So we actually went to the pumpkin patch, picked 40 pumpkins from the patch, loaded them up in the truck, and brought them to the elementary school. And just that presence, showing them that you care, is always a great way for them to reach back out to you.
I love that. That is a beautiful representation of you like really caring about the community. And again, that's not one of those things where you can say, okay, we dropped off 40 pumpkins and we got one patient from it. Like that's not how it's going to work. What's going to work is when the parent that works at that school or the parent of the kiddo who got one of those pumpkins calls you, and they may tell you it was the dentist that referred us, because that's usually what people think the strongest referral source they can tell you is their dentist or a patient. So those are the ones we hear the most, but usually they've touched something within the ecosphere of what we do. And that's why at People in Practice, we do holistic marketing, and we believe in that, is because we know that people touch so many things before they actually pick up the phone and call you or go to your website and fill out a form. So I will say I've seen some offices do the car tag pickup, and on the back of it with their ad, they'll say something funny because that's what the parent is staring at. So it's like, looking good today, or, your smile's bright today, or, I don't know, just silly quotes like that make people grin when they look at it, because they're like, oh, that's so dumb, but they're laughing.
No.
So
it's true. It's true. It really, is a way to connect with those parents. Not everything has to be so serious.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think the best advice I've ever received was to reach out to the schools, or, these homeschool groups and co-ops are huge, much bigger than I think people realize. And maybe that's, community specific, obviously, but reach out to them and just be like, we want to help. What do you need? And by asking what somebody needs, instead of, can we do this for you? Or can we sponsor that? Just what do you need? And I think I've shared this before on the podcast, but, we did that with one school. We were at middle school. We were just like, what do you guys need? And they're like, we need mini deodorants, because preteen boys. Need I say more? Right. And so we did. We went and got a ton of mini deodorants. They let us put our sticker on the back of them, but most of those stayed in the gym lockers at the school, so they weren't necessarily getting home. But that wasn't the point. The point was the school was so incredibly grateful for that. We also had a school. Actually, we did this at all of the schools, is we dropped off emergency braces and retainer emergency repair kits to the nurse. And we taught them how to effectively use wax, because people don't understand it has to be super dry to stick, all of these things, teaching them how to use the eraser of a pencil to bend something that's poking, just giving the nurses a little bit of education is also really, they're very, very grateful for that. And if you can give them some tools also for them to keep, they're really grateful for that as well. So just other ideas.
That's a great idea. Yeah, we have done school nurse packets, and they're very appreciative of that. And with the homeschool group, I'd say also trying to find those patients that are homeschooled themselves and reaching out to their parents, offering perhaps an in-office field trip for them, kind of catered around to what they're learning in what subject they're learning at in school. And, there's great ways to talk about health, oral health and hygiene, using the 3D scanners and the printers to talk about science and technology. So there's really great ways that you can show off the practice with the homeschool groups.
That's great. Actually, talking about the 3D printers, I bet that goes over really well with some of these groups, because they do get into that science-based learning. And that is incredible technology that I'm going to date myself and tell you I haven't worked in a practice where we had that technology, and I'm super jealous of the practices that have it, and the 3D printers and the things that can be done. I was in a dark room developing PAs and things in a dark room. So the technology bit, that's a great thing to highlight in a practice, especially with those homeschool groups. So that's a really great tip.
Yeah. And then you have the parents interacting because they didn't have that. They're talking about the goo that was in their mouth that made them want to gag, and how lucky these kids are to have to be scanned, with that iTero scanners, and then going straight to the lab and having them print out. It's pretty awesome.
That's amazing.
Okay. I think we can all admit that we want to work somewhere that feels good. And I think creating a positive culture and work environment is really the key to longevity of your team. And someone who really has this down is my friend Haley. Let's listen into her valuable insights.
What are the key elements, in your opinion, to a positive culture in a practice? What are those key things that really build that positivity within the practice?
Absolutely. I think that communication is a big one, and honesty. You have to be honest. And the biggest thing, and I don't want to gloss over it, but you have to be kind. You just have to be a kind person. And the honesty and the communication also play into that. So if you want a positive culture, then you have to have people there that are open with each other, honest with each other, and kind all around. And it needs to be a standard. It shouldn't be like a, hey, if you're kind but you're not honest, it'll work. It's like it's got to be all three. It really does take all three. And you have to uphold it. You have to have team members that are going to uphold that. So whether you've got seasoned members on the team that have been here for years or people that have been here for a month, they all need to have those three really important elements for it to be successful and then also maintain that success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also think, like, as a team member, genuinely listening to your other team members. And that's part of, so I pick a word of the year every year. I'm super weird. And I kind of lean into that word all year. I find quotes that lean into it, and I really try to explore that word. So this year, my word is curiosity. And so through curiosity, I'm trying to genuinely listen to people. And I've learned that instead of jumping in and being like, well, that's not how we do it here, or, there are so many good ideas out there. And if you're genuinely curious and you really listen with that curiosity, not everybody's going to share your values or how you think or relate to people. But if you're listening and you're genuinely curious, and then if your leadership team is genuinely listening back and like makes you feel heard, I think you're right. It's that open communication and that honesty. That's how you build, a welcoming culture. And I think your patients feel that, right? Like they feel that this team gets along and that there's synergy here. And conversely, they feel when there's a lot of tension, and they can feel when the front office and the back office dislike each other, which I've seen way too many times. So I just think that listening and communication and all of those little pieces, and like you said, setting that standard right from the beginning makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's huge. And it's like you said, you can feel it when it's on, you can feel it when it's off. And you don't want to expose your patients to an off culture. You want them to feel that positivity when they come in. And I think that if it's going right, you'll sense it. If it's going wrong, you'll sense it. And the open and honest communication is a huge part of that. And also talking to each other rather than about each other is a very big one. An immediate conversation solves so many things. So it's just helpful to have the honesty, the communication, and the kindness all compact into one, and knowing that that's the standard for everybody. So.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Having worked in a few offices, I know that the people you are surrounded by and the leadership you have make all the difference to the enjoyment and sometimes even the fulfillment you get in your career within a practice. And I love the wisdom and perspective that Tricia shared with us here.
How did you collaborate with the orthodontist and other team members to ensure smooth operations within the practice? What was your kind of secret ingredient to making things run well?
I think meetings are important. I definitely think scheduled meetings are important, and then following up with those meetings. I know you'd have some people that just thought a meeting was free lunch, and I get it. But it's truly that time to get everyone on board, ask the questions, but then having a secondary one, a quick follow-up of this is going well, or now that we've done it, what can you see? Because not any system you implement is going to be right the first time. So I think continuously having those and blocking them out on your schedule is huge. And I know for a doctor, taking away an hour long is losing production. Do it over lunch. It's worth paying for their lunch. Having those set meetings was something that we planned out. You'd build it. What were we doing? What do we need to do? And getting people's feedback, I think, is huge. And then just circling back to it. Because if you don't and you think it's going okay, but you don't hear the mumbles, then you're not really making things better. So I think one thing we did was we really got away from meetings at first when I first started, and then it was scheduled. There was quarterly, there was monthly. We were always had an opportunity for somebody to bring up an issue that we could try to work through. And there's always the one-offs, but as a whole, are we seeing this? Are we missing this? So I think that was something, good or bad. Please schedule the meetings. Don't reschedule if you can't make them. But it definitely made everyone feel like they were in the dark. The office manager and the doctor talk, and then they just implement stuff. They don't ask us. Here's what we're going to do. What's your guys' thoughts? Here's the why. And then coming back and really caring about that. So I think just being open and honest of what's to come. And then again, like I said, just always coming back and seeing how's it going.
Yes. It would have been my number one answer as well to that same question. I think it's the meetings, and it's not just the meetings of everybody together, which I do know are valuable and important, but then those subgroups. So if you've got a team that's kind of leading the marketing, and maybe that shifts from time to time, that subgroup has a chance to meet and really collaborate and talk, and then bring their thoughts and ideas back to that group meeting. And I think it's a matter of, as mundane as it sounds, like, what did we talk about last meeting? Let's just review how that's going now and kind of do a little temperature check and just make sure that, things are, we implemented this thing. Is it working? Because like you said, the same things aren't going to work well for each practice. And so we've got to try these things and then be like, is this working for us? How can we tweak it so it fits us? Because again, there's no cookie cutter anything. So, and I just think the meetings, though, in my opinion, they have to be collaborative and they have to be open discussion. I think if you go into those meetings where it's just the doctor and the office manager talking the whole time and nobody else has a say, or some people are too scared to speak up because the last meeting that person got like, no, we're not going to talk about that, kind of shot down. I think, again, it's that top down mentality where like, you've got to just be like, here at the top, we're here to make sure that everybody else has a good day and to manage these things. And I want to hear what you have to say, but then I expect you to hear what I have to say back. Like that collaboration and discussion and open communication, and making sure that everybody on the team maybe has a role in that meeting. So everybody has something to say, because I've been in those meetings, like I said, where it's one person talk the whole time and I was doodling on I don't even know what they were talking about half the time, to be honest, because it just like became like, droning. I don't know. I think our brains just need to hear like different perspectives and different thoughts and different tones of voice sometimes to like snap us back into the moment. Or after 30 minutes, let everybody get up and get a drink of water so you kind of move a little bit, or you have to really watch your team, listen to your team, and then have that open communication. But I completely agree that those scheduled meetings are incredibly valuable to making sure that things are running smooth and that we're talking about the things that aren't running smooth. Like, it's the elephant in the room when everybody knows that there's a problem, but nobody wants to talk about it. And, it's really healthy, I think, sometimes to be like, hey, this thing sucks. How are we going to fix it? Like, let's all talk about a solution to this. So I think those meetings are a good place to do that. So love that thought.
If you need a little inspiration to get your team involved in marketing, then listen closely to what Christi, the amazing team member and all-around wonderful human at Star Orthodontics, has to say.
So when it comes to your marketing role, how do you get the rest of the team engaged, especially with social? I know you said giving them a little bit of control and maybe giving them some responsibility in it, but how do you keep them kind of engaged and excited and motivated to help you with it?
There's I was always told when I was a young adult and then getting into older in life, I don't want to say, I'm old, but now that I'm 50, I've really kind of embraced the way that I was designed. Everybody has different gifts. Everybody does. Mine, I think, honestly, you always want to have something outrageous, like, I'm this musician, I'm an artist, I'm super smart, I'm a scientist, and all these different. Mine has never been anything that you could really pinpoint like that, or that you could learn in school. I believe your gifts are something that just comes natural to you, and it's who you are. So love and encouragement have always just come natural to me. So it's never fake. I don't feel like I'm filling somebody full of a whole bunch of, mess and just trying to puff them up or anything. So I use my gifts to bring out their gifts. If I see like Sierra, I'm just going to name her. She's one of the ones that I have that does the videos quite a bit. She is so pretty and she is so goofy and kind and warm. So I love her doing those videos. And I always tell her every time she shows me one, and she always gets nervous. I don't know if it's good enough. I'm like, I just love seeing your face. You were just the cutest thing. Like, I love seeing your face. I like seeing you. And I don't want it to be me on social media. I want to see your face. Well, that makes her even more inclined. She just wants to do more. What else can I do to help? What else can I do? Same thing with the other girls. I really love your ideas. Your ideas are always so unique. I love when you come to me with your ideas. So anytime you're thinking about, so then they're just bombarding me with ideas. So it's something that's sincere, but you really have to look for the strengths in other people, because you can't be everything. And I'm going to be 1,000% honest with you. I'm the worst when it comes to technology and social media. You should have seen me asking the girls. I'm like, how do I even make a video? What do I do with TikTok? I've never been on there before. How do you get on it? Like, what do you do? And these girls trying to teach me how to use this stuff. I'm the last person, Dr. Rock, in my mind, I'm the last person that has the know-how to actually do anything to be in charge of marketing when it comes to social media. Now, you give me, local store marketing and stuff like that. Well, I did that all the time as a general manager. But there was no social media whenever I was doing that. It was just coming out. So this is just as new to me as it is to, anybody else. And you just kind of have to, I rely on my young girls that are familiar with social media. So she needed somebody that was actually going to be mature enough to keep all the cats herded. But I need the cats because this old lady doesn't know what to do. They teach me everything.
Well, what I can say is I've worked with a lot of team members throughout my years of consulting and working in practices, and you truly do have a gift of making people feel warm and seen. Just even through, our time together working, I'm always excited when I get a text message from you and it's just positive and encouraging. That really is something very special, and you can't teach that. You know what I'm saying? I can teach you how to pass an instrument, and I'm going to really date myself, fit a band. I can teach you how to take a scan, but I can't teach you how to care and how to be a good leader, because you want your team to shine brighter than yourself. And I think that's what in particular makes you really special at what you do, is you want your office and your team to shine. You don't need to be the spotlight of that. You don't need to be the center. You just want to make sure all those boxes are checked and that everybody feels good. So you're very, the compassion that you have for people really, really shines through. And so that was in particular one of the many things that I love about you. But you check the boxes and you get the things done and you get me the content, and you're very professional, but it's that warmth, and you're very kind and you're very warm. And I just think we've got to continue to find people in our practices with these traits that really portray what we're trying to give our patients, not just somebody's skill level, because I can bring you up to my skill level scanning. Most people, you just have them do it, but you can't teach somebody to care the way that you care. And I think that's why your team is so engaged. I hear all the time from practices, oh, but our team doesn't want to be on social. Oh, they really don't want their faces on there. Okay, great. Have them hold the camera and take the video for the person who will. You can still involve people without taking somebody out of their comfort zone. Also, you can push somebody maybe outside of that comfort zone a little bit, and maybe they'll find a skill that they didn't know they had previously. Because I will tell you, I've said it before on this podcast, when Leon and Amy were like, let's have you host a podcast. I'm like, worst idea ever. Terrible idea. This is going to go down in a ball of flames, but we'll make it really fun. It'll be a really fun crash landing. And then I've just learned that, there may be things I get better a little bit each time, but it's pushed me out of my comfort zone in a way that I've got this skill now that I just didn't know maybe existed inside of me. And I can be like, oh, I really enjoy this because I get to talk to people like you, and I get to help you tell the story of your practice, and you tell the story of, what it means to be a team member in a practice. I just don't think people understand that you're not just making teeth straight. Like you are making an impact on not just your team members' lives, but the patients that walk in the door. And so there's just so many facets that I've learned throughout this process and working with people. And you just embody so much of that. So thank you for being willing to share that and for showing that that warmth can help your team also stay engaged. I think you're absolutely fantastic.
That's a lot of sweet things you said.
Well, all very true.
Last but not least, the question of charging for exams is a really hot topic in the orthodontic industry, and it seems to kind of come up in cycles. So I really loved getting the thoughts of Linda Lindsay from Hughes Orthodontics. Let's listen in to what she had to share.
So we like to get questions or comments from our listeners and our people in practice clients about our topic. So let's listen to our first question.
Our doctor is considering starting to charge for the NP exam, and I understand that his knowledge and time are valuable, but I am worried this will reduce the amount of overall exams we will have scheduled with us.
We tried that. It didn't really work. We did find that having the free consultation and the records and everything we do in that consultation is free, but it's benefiting us as well as the patient. But if the patient's like, hey, I'd like to have my records and I'd like to go to another orthodontist, then there would be a fee for the records.
Okay.
Then at one point in time, we tried to just charge the adults because they would cancel a lot. Charging it just didn't work out so well for our office. So we don't charge, and it is a free consultation.
I feel like this happens like every, 3 to 5 years in the industry. There's this big push again for like, let's charge for the exams. And I really do understand it because the doctor's knowledge and the staff's time, like all of that has so much value. But my thought has always been, okay, so let's say you charge 125 or 250 for an exam, and that stops is like the barrier to maybe 10 people that came in. Let's say you started 5 out of those 10. The difference in the production for the office versus the, for the exam versus the start is so much different. I
And
think
if they can go to another place and get a free consultation, they're going to go there instead of coming here. So
I think unless the whole industry shifts and starts to charge for exams across the board, which I don't see happening, I think this is how it's going to be. And I also think, I had been in the industry for a long time. We won't say how long. It's been a while. But
longer than me?
Maybe no, probably not. But we're probably neck and neck. But even when it was time for my son to have treatment, I pretty much knew the office that I wanted to take him to. But just out of pure curiosity, I took him to 3 exams. And if I had, been charged for that, I probably would have only taken him to the one. And it really, I think, would have limited our knowledge of who we were choosing and why we were choosing them. And I mean, it's a commitment, not just financially, but this is somebody who's going to have their fingers in your mouth or your kid's mouth. And like, that's a big decision to make. You're going to see these people for, a couple years, every 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what technology that office is using. So I just think it's okay that people go and do their homework. I encourage second and third opinions because they're going to come back to you if you guys are doing, which I know you are, they're going to come back to you guys because you showed them not only the knowledge and the experience of the doctor, but the heart that you guys put into treatment. There's a difference there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we have some of the dentists have ortho in their office.
Sure.
And so we've gotten second opinions from there, but they come here. And we want them to feel comfortable and confident with whoever they choose. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's still an education gap out there with the knowledge that like, hey, did you know your orthodontist is actually a dentist who went to further their education to specialize in moving your teeth? I just think if people really understood that, there might be more value placed on choosing a specialist over your dentist, which I'm not saying dentists in some cases aren't qualified to do some of this movement, but it's different when you're going to a specialist. It's a different level of care. So
absolutely.
I really hope you enjoyed looking back on some great conversations we had in 2025, and we can't wait to keep these discussions going in the new year. Our goal with this podcast is to give you truly tangible items that you can use in your day-to-day life at the office and to elevate the voices of the people that actually work in an office and sit in the same chair that you sit in every day. We would love to hear your topic or guest recommendations, as well as questions or comments about things that you are dealing with within your practice. Send us your questions or stories to practice-talk.com. Please subscribe and share this episode with your friends and family that might find these conversations helpful and interesting. And don't forget to listen to our original podcast called The Golden Age of Orthodontics, hosted by the founders of People in Practice, Dr. Leon Klempner and Amy Epstein. Until next time, thank you for joining us on Practice Talk, where your voice has value.
Thank you for listening to the Practice Talk podcast. Head over to practice-talk.com to ask us questions or tell us your stories. Until next time.